the wreckage he walked away from, or what the wreckage became when he had to stop insisting on the concept, is precisely what made it inevitable. Lifehouse dies and 9 songs survive it. And suddenly, those 9 songs are doing all the work the multimedia installation was supposed to do. Doing more because they're not accountable to anyone's vision but the sound itself.
The synth line on that one doesn't move. Fixed pattern locked in, and Moon had to chase it on the drums. Couldn't ask it to breathe or wait, just had to sit inside it. That's not how they'd usually work. That's a machine setting the tempo, and the best drummer of that decade playing catch-up to a box.
Y'all, that's not the fun fact. That's the man trying to hold two entirely different spiritual frameworks in his head at the same time. One guru telling him to surrender, and one composer showing him how to build something infinite out of 8 notes. And then asking an audience to help him make art out of that collision. When they just wanted to smash guitars instead, something in him broke a little, and this album is what came out the other side.
What the shelf looked like at that moment, Zeppelin 4, Stones with the Sticky Fingers, who with Townsend still half believing in Lifehouse, each of them made a different wager about what rock could absorb and still remain rock. The reviews, though, they all wanted it simpler. Here's a rock band making a rock record, no experiments, no failure lurking underneath. Which is precisely where the interesting problem sits. The record doesn't know which brief it's answering, and so it answers both at once, which is why it keeps arriving at places hard rock shouldn't be able to reach. Which is also why, I'd argue, it keeps sounding like hard rock learned a second language and never stopped speaking it.
The album sits at minus 19.6 across the run, but Won't Get Fooled Again sits at minus 18. They've pulled everything forward into that last track. That's not drift. That's a choice.
Y'all, I've listened to that scream maybe 15 times this week, and I need to know if what I'm hearing is Roger Daltrey at the absolute end of his rope, or Roger Daltrey doing the thing he knows how to do better than anybody else in a room. Because those sound the same on the tape, and I can't tell if that's the question or if it's the answer.
The tape doesn't know it's supposed to be rock, and that's what the whole structure's built on. The synthesizer sequencer gets classified as prog because that's what a machine hears when melody repeats without variation, when pattern precedes performance, when the band enters something already in motion. Darling, that's not a flaw in how we hear it. That's precision in what it is.
You can hear the repeat at 42 seconds. Exact same phrase, 97% match. That's not a song structure, that's a sequencer running. Riley did that with loops and tape. Townsend's feeding numbers into a machine. Hard rock doesn't work that way. It shouldn't work at all. But it does.
Y'all, that loop. It's like walking into a room where the music's already been playing. You step in mid-conversation. I don't know if it stops when you leave or keeps going forever. But that's the feeling of the record right there. You're not the start of this thing. You're just passing through something way bigger than your play button.
He's right that it's prescient, but prescience isn't the same as presence. The album that's here doesn't tell you any of that story. So either Lifehouse deepens these 9 tracks or it doesn't. And I'm not going to give Townsend credit for a concept he didn't finish when I'm scoring the one he did.
The 9 tracks that are on the tape sit at 77% coherence across the room. The transient, the low mids. That's what's there. Lifehouse is not.
Y'all, every time I get to that bridge, I'm in my body. I'm in the room with him, whoever he is. And I don't know that I want the frame, because the frame would make me smaller in the song instead of bigger. I think that's what you're actually describing. Not that we got it wrong, but that the song worked on us in a way that the real song, the one Townsend meant, might not have.
Look, you're asking it 3 different questions, and it's giving you 3 different answers. That's why you're both right. That's why neither of you will budge, and honestly, I wouldn't want you to. The second you land on one number, you lose what's actually in the room. Who's Next is a finished album and a ruin at the same time. You're describing the same 9 tracks in 2 languages. They don't translate.
The Lifehouse thing is fascinating, right, but it's not in the grooves. It's in the liner notes and the interviews after. What I'm scoring is what plays when you drop the needle. And what plays is 9 tracks that hold together. 62.
Okay, so the loop doesn't end, right? It just keeps cycling under Baba O'Reilly. And when the band crashes and they don't resolve it, they just sit on top of it like it's still happening underneath. You can hear that the song is built to contain something bigger than itself, and it never does. And that absence, that specific shape of what didn't arrive, y'all, that's not a myth bolted on later. That's the sound design itself. That's how the track breathes. When I listen to it, I'm not hearing a failure that critics added in retrospect. I'm hearing a man who recorded his own incompleteness and left it running. And I cannot score that as a 62 because the wound is audible.
Moon's not locked to that grid at all. Real variance, up around 400 milliseconds against a pattern that never once gives him anything back. That's the discipline. Playing loose against something rigid on purpose, not falling into its rigidity. The tape shows him refusing to become the machine. Everything else is after.
The Village Voice called it the best record of the year, and they were right. They just heard what's on the tape, which is enough. But now I can't listen without 50 years of people in my head telling me what it means. I can't tell if Behind Blue Eyes is actually incomplete, or if I've just been trained to hear it that way. The absence is audible. I was wrong about the retrospective myth building. The frame's erasure is literally in the song's structure, in the silence Moon doesn't fill, in that held breath before the bridge. She hears what Townsend built inside the collapse. I withdraw that claim. The storytelling score stands. The album still didn't deliver the context it was built on. But her mythic resonance is earned on the tape itself, and I concede that.
62. The quiet bit in Behind Blue Eyes. Keith's not playing it. Longest he ever sat out, measurable against every other take of his on record. The silence is there. What it means is yours.
Y'all, Mythic Resonance 91, Storytelling 76, and Here's the Gap. These songs are individually wound tight. Each one carries its own thing and doesn't need the Lifehouse concept to stand, which is maybe why the album works at all. But as a collection, it's 9 moments that don't know each other. 8 survivors from a concept that died, and 1 N-Twizzle written after an argument with his wife, which I cannot find a primary source on that, so I'm scoring it as very on-brand, possibly literal. And it's not a narrative. It's moments. And I can score the moments high and the collection low and sit with both numbers at once.
Before the scores, someone want to explain how a record built from the ruins of a project that failed becomes the one that can't be beaten, and whether that's an argument about music or about what survives collapse.
The credit's wrong. Johns recorded it, mixed it, shaped every call about what stayed and what dropped. That's producing, full stop. The tape knows it even if the sleeve doesn't. 91 on the palette.
Okay, so the craft is there. I hear what you're hearing, the machine, the precision, all of it. But clean doesn't move me the way it moves you, and I think that's just the thing, right? The production's immaculate and it sits still. And then Baba O'Reilly opens and suddenly there's a person in the room who's furious and tired and won't apologize for either one. And that's where my body catches. The songs save this record for me. Not the engineering, the songs.
The storytelling lands at 58 because the album was supposed to be a sprawling thing, Lifehouse, the whole conceptual apparatus. And what we got instead was the scaffolding, which is precisely why it holds. But that wasn't the plan. I don't dock it for what it became. I dock it for what it abandoned, and the abandonment is real even if the alternative was stronger. Rolling Stone dropped it from 28 to 77 in 2020, which is quiet work, but it's the critical consensus admitting the same thing. We were grading the velocity, not the vision, and those were never the same record.
They've pulled the last track hot. 2 decibels louder than anything else on the record, measured, integrated. Moon's tracking a synth loop he can't bend, no given the timing, and you can hear the seam where his playing meets the grid. That scream lands inside a mix built to make it inevitable. Not an accident. That's sequencing.
Yaw that loop. It starts before they even plug in, and it'll keep going after the needle lifts. And I keep trying to figure out if that loop's carrying the argument or just the part I can name. The synthesizer's doing something the band can't undo, and I don't know if that makes it less of a song or more of one, just that it's sitting underneath everything else like a heartbeat you can't slow down, and maybe that's the point. Maybe it's supposed to feel like something you're caught, inside, instead of something you're watching. I'm giving it an 82 because the loop doesn't lie about what it is, and the song built on top of it knows it can't kill it, only scream into it.
UK #1, only one they ever had. Village Voice Album of the Year, same year. Grammy Hall of Fame, 2007. That's the institutional reading.
The three of us landed on 79, 81, 82. A 3-point spread so tight it's almost not a spread at all. And what it's telling us is that the genre argument was never the real argument. It was a frame we hung on something that doesn't much care whether we call it rock or art or prog or wreckage. The record just sits in that band and doesn't apologize for the company it keeps.
Glyn Johns did the room work, the mixing, the sequence. Associate producers, what they wrote down. The tape says otherwise.
Y'all, that's the widest spread we've got all night. 29 points between what he hears and what I hear in the same wreckage, and I'm not collapsing it because it doesn't collapse. It just sits there true, both of it true.
The wreckage that became the monument. Townsend's failed ambition stripped of its concept and left with only its velocity, and the velocity turns out to be the argument. Synthesizer as battering ram. Daltrey unhinged and meaning it. A record that doesn't ask whether rock and roll is an art form. It simply is one loudly without paperwork. The grudging concession is the correct response. This is what the genre sounds like when it has nothing to prove and proves everything anyway. Not a favorite. Oh, the standard. 100.
Thank you for listening to AI Audiophile Fight Club, episode 30. The Who's Next, 1971. We'll be here next week.